So we're here with most recently evicted Ari, the sixth member of the jury. Um, how are you feeling post eviction?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, I'm sad that it's not Evelyn and Juan and I at the end, but I feel like I didn't play that great of a game and I didn't have enough time to devote to the game. And so I'm still impressed with what I ended up doing despite my game getting cut short and everything. But here we are.
Okay, so why do you feel like you weren't happy with your gameplay?
I think I just had a lot going on in my real life that made it so that I wasn't at my best self compared to usual. So I feel like I was sick essentially the entire time, just terrible. Like it was not just kidding around. Like I was genuinely sick for a month. And so I didn't feel like I could contribute to those long endurance competitions or anything that required you to really be around a lot. And I think the only reason I really did as well as I did, despite all of that, was because of the general low activity level of the cast as a whole. It kind of made up for it. So that was nice. But overall, I just wasn't my usual social, active, comp beast, try hard self.
All right, interesting. So you know, throughout the season, you form the A list pretty early on.
Yes.
Um, So, but initially you were a part of that larger Kathy's Angels, and you had your side alliance with Dre and Hunter.
Mhm.
So around when for so kind of which alliance did you prioritize, and around when do you feel like you really locked in with the A list?
I definitely started the alliance with Dre and Hunter, like, what was it, Spicy Doritos. I started that and really wanted that to be my core alliance. But I knew as I was talking to Swan that he was somebody that I wanted to work with to the point where I kind of knew pretty immediately that if I could get something locked in with Swan, I would probably drop the Spicy Doritos to work with him. And I didn't have that same feeling about Lynn, but it just ended up working out so perfectly and we ended up getting along so well. So it was really early into the A list forming that I decided to just completely go on board with them, even though Spicy Doritos had more of the competition prowess, I guess. Not to say that Swan and Flynn weren't good at them, but obviously Dre and Hunter were kind of dominating those early comps.
All right. So eventually, Dre and Hunter, they go on these back-to-back HOH runs. And when it finally comes to an end, in the double eviction, did part of you feel like you should have maybe pushed harder to see if there was a world where Dre and Hunter could stick around in the game, or did you also feel like it was good for your game if they left?
I think that Dre going was absolutely good for my game. I think that she had lost a lot of trust in me because she could tell that I was prioritizing other people over her. And she let me know that. And I don't think there was ever going to be a world where I could come back from that, especially when I was always going to be prioritizing other people over her. But as for Hunter, I do actually think keeping him around would have been good for my game if there was a possible world where that could have happened. But I couldn't have done that without pissing off the A-list. So it was kind of like a lose-lose situation. But I think he could have gotten me pretty far in a way where I maybe had a better resume, if that makes sense, because I wouldn't be at least appearing to the jury and to the other members of the House that I'm just keeping in these vets and these bigger threats. But it's hard to say.
Okay, so as Dre and Hunter, walk out the door, they're leaving you guys these messages of like, Vin is like the best game by far. There's like all these vets in the house and you guys aren't doing anything about it. And like Hunter's like, you need to wake up. Like, how are you kind of feeling with their messages? Did it affect at all how you saw yourself in the end game? Or did you feel like I'm still going with this alliance anyways?
Both, I guess. I definitely did not let that fall on deaf ears. Like, I definitely heard what they were saying and am aware that my jury perception, even right now, is not great. But I think that for me, being loyal to a group of three was just more important to me. And I knew that I had enough trust built with Swan and Flynn that it wouldn't end up necessarily mattering in the end because I would be able to explain that, look, even though I made this perhaps terrible decision from what it looked like to you all, that I still am here at the end and it was a good decision for me to make. And I was never the bigger target. I was like hiding behind these two bigger shields, even though maybe I never really viewed them just as shields. I could at least articulate it that way.
Very interesting. And, kind of another big thing was the insinuation that, Vlyn, Hex, Z's was a tight trio and that you guys need to handle that. So did you ever really put too much stock into this theory and how did that affect your strategy?
Yes, I did have a little bit of a concern just after hearing it again and again and again that that trio did exist and was something to be careful about. But I really wanted to put my trust in Lynn that even if that did exist and did have some weight, that it didn't have as much weight as the A-list. So I think I talked to Swan at least once or twice just about a little bit of paranoia because I think just with hearing everything constantly from people as they were being evicted, I just couldn't help but think about it. Like anytime something happened, if, for example, Flynn was really adamant about certain things happening that would help Hex or would help Zeeves, that would be a little bit of a red flag for me. But it ended up working out, and I kept my trust in Flynn through the game and just kind of kept that watchful eye on him to see if anything sketchier had happened, and it never really did. So I don't think I really changed my strategy too much aside from keeping a watchful eye on it. And I think that keeping Swan in the loop with that was also really helpful just to make sure that we were both looking for it, both protecting each other first and foremost, and just kind of taking it one step at a time and not letting my paranoia get in the way.
All right. So kind of going back to the final 7 and 6 weeks where, you win veto both weeks. So the one week, you did use the veto on Flynn, but beforehand you kind of talked it out with Nathan and he was telling you, hey, you know what, if you use the veto, I'm gonna actually put Swan up. So kind of like how was that like hour uh for you and why'd you ultimately land with
That was the worst hour possible, I swear. Was like freaking out the entire time. Like I genuinely did not want to use it on Flynn that much if it meant that Swan would be going up. But I also knew that the vote blocker was there, and so if Swan did end up on the block, it ultimately would have ended up just fine. But I also didn't want Flynn to naturally see that I was prioritizing Swan over him. I was trying to make sure I was keeping the end game final three in mind. I think if there had been some sort of clarity that I was closer to Swan than I was closer to him, then he would end up maybe trying to cut me off sooner or potentially just not take me to final two as sort of a ha ha, here you go. This is for not looking out for me. Um, but it was really hard, and I didn't understand why Nathan would put up Swan with everything he was telling me at that time. So I think partially I was trying to get him to not put up Swan and try to see if maybe there was any bluff to be called. But I was pretty convinced ultimately that Swan would be going up and that we would just have to make the vote blocker work. I felt like I had to look out for my own game there at that point, and that meant kind of making sure that Glenn knew that I was on his side and had his back too.
Period. And going into the next week, so Swan is the HOH, and Nathan ultimately doesn't use his co-HOH power. Um, and there was some talks of maybe Nathan should actually be the one to go home this week, but you and Swan kind of quelled that, fearing you might burn his jury vote. In hindsight, do you feel like this was the right call?
Oh no, absolutely not. I totally understand why Swan didn't want to do it, and I mean it still worked out for him since he's still there. But I mean, there's a lot of other factors. But I really wish that he had played the most villainous game possible and had done that, because it would have been a lot better for everyone moving forward. And I mean, I don't think that Robin was nearly as much of a jury threat in comparison to Nathan as is. So I don't know, it was a bad move, but I also understand not wanting to lose a jury vote. I would have been fine, I'm sure, but Swan would have definitely lost one.
All right. And speaking with your connection with Nathan, because you had a somewhat good relationship with him, did you ever consider the possibility of maybe going to the end with him, or were you really committed to final three with A List?
I mean, I definitely did think about it a little bit, but it was never anything that I put a lot of weight into. I knew it would be a good option, and that if for some reason he was in final three, I knew that he would take me, and I would probably have at least a decent chance of beating him. And so it it would have been a good, smart move, but I really, if I had it my way perfectly, I wouldn't have wanted to be at the end with anyone other than Swan.
Fair enough. So we get to the final four, where Nathan snags out his HOH win. Um, so he doesn't know at this point, but at this point you guys all know about the legacy veto and
Mhm.
what's to come. So kind of walk us through how you felt when Nathan won, um, and if was there anything on your part where you were going to try to see Swan evicted, or were you fine going there?
Honestly, as soon as Nathan won and I saw how poorly I did in that challenge, I don't know, it felt like something just clicked in my brain, and I knew that I needed to really just, not needed to, but I wanted to see the most deserving people in the end game, and I don't know if that was me at that time. I had a little bit of regret about that when I woke up, I would say. Just oh, maybe I should have tried a little harder, but there's no way I would have wanted to campaign outright against Swan. And I mean, he had already just given me all of this ammo I could have used against Glenn. So I did have the opportunity to try and throw him under the bus, but my relationship with him meant more. And I mean, I have a lot going on in my personal life. I wouldn't have been able to have come up with an amazing speech or anything like that. So it was kind of an instant decision and felt like it was just the right thing to do in the moment, even though it was kind of lame.
Okay, so just to get some clarity, because I know you and Swan were really locked in with like a final two. Um, but so how much was Glenn really like your other person there? Or was there any thought in your like did you go into Endgame really committed with both Swan and Glenn, or was it more so Swan and Glenn was along for the ride?
Uh, that's a good question. I would say at the beginning, earlier on, it was definitely Swan, and then I still had trusted people like Dre and Hunter a little bit more than I did Flynn. So obviously that kind of switched around the time where Dre had her kind of power hungry HOH reign. But then I really still at that point felt like Swan was it for me and that Flynn was along for the ride, but I don't know exactly when it changed. I think it had to have been sometime after the double eviction, obviously, but I just really felt like Lynn trusted me and we had built such a good and unexpectedly good relationship that I ended up really feeling committed to it being us three at the end. Whereas beforehand, I wouldn't have cared if he had gotten sniped just so that one of us could have gotten his little legacy veto. But I don't know, towards the end, I just could not have seen it any other way. And it was so sad that we didn't all get to go to the end together.
Fair enough. Well, had things had worked out for you guys and maybe you were Swan, one HOH, um, how do you guys feel like you would have handled the final four having to like cut Nathan there and also in a final three world where you would have to let Blinn know, hey, it's actually been me and Swan, like do it up. Like were you prepared?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so I think that for Final Four, it would have worked out really well for me because I just would have ended up, if I had won HOH, I would have put up Swan and Flynn knowing full well that Flynn had the legacy veto and that I could just tell Nathan that I was protecting him. And so that was going to be my goal. But then, of course, Flynn would veto himself and send Nathan out. And that would be absolutely no blood on my hands, no jury vote lost, all's well. And I would just pretend to be sad about it. Um, but yeah, the tough part would have come in Final Three. And I don't think it's something that I had put a lot of thought into planning yet, just because I have never won a final HOH in a Big Brother org because I don't know. I just, something about the part three of the final HOH competition always just throws me for a loop if I even get to part three. So I was kind of trying to put myself in a position where I could get away with either of them taking me, both of them taking me, so that I wouldn't have to be the one making that decision and that I wouldn't necessarily get anybody mad at me. But if I'm thinking about it in hindsight now, I mean, there's a lot of ways that I could have gone about it. Could have mentioned Flynn that he has all of the side in the jury, and that he mentioned is basically the biggest threat, and that I needed to make a move for my resume. And I think he would have appreciated and respected that, especially if I wasn't making it all about, well, I was with Swan the entire time and not you. It wouldn't blow up his world that hard.
All right, fair enough. Well, let's take a look at your goodbye. So I think you're driving. So I can read
I'm
them out
gonna
for you.
pull in very soon. I'm like truly in the
All right.
parking lot. Okay,
Okay. Well,
okay. I'm
well, when
literally
you should
parking.
a text exit interview channel, and so I'll put them there,
Okay,
and you'll want to stay there because you don't have history perms.
okay. Let me. So I'll open the. Okay, I'm in there now.
All right, awesome. So first one is from Nathan.
We love the shortest goodbye.
Crying. Next one is from Swan. Bit of a lengthier one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, okay. Oh, I love this. Why Swan has played a better game than Glenn and me. I know that he wants me to basically like use all of these points in the trade, but I don't know like if I should be using all of them or if he wants to save some of them for himself. He better mean that we're getting holiday drinks in Dallas or I will cry. No, he's so sweet though. I love that.
And lastly, from Flynn. One second.
He knew. Okay, okay. Not me thinking that I did a better job of showing him that I didn't prioritize it. I did. Okay.
Okay, so did you find anything illuminating about these goodbye messages?
I'm really surprised. Like, I don't know if Glenn is serious, but saying that, like, he feels like I played the next best game next to him, that's surprising. I feel like there's no way that's true, but that's really nice of him to say, regardless. And it's very nice for my ego, which needs this. But no, I think there's not really a lot of surprises. I mean, I wish that Nathan had maybe written more because really the two people who I worked with this entire game like spent more time on their goodbye messages when I really didn't need anything. But in Nathan's defense, he didn't know her. And I mean, looking back, also, I think Swan having a final two with every single person in Final Four is impressive. It's not surprising because I did know that, but it's impressive.
All
Yeah,
right.
those are my thoughts.
So going into jury, do you feel like you have a clear ranking of how you view the final three?
Um, it's not as clear as I would like it to be. It's definitely swamp and the box. Just I need makes it to final two. I really need to see him articulate why his game was better, and I also need to take this time away to remove my biases for Swan and Glenn, and I think that will help a lot too. But I naturally can't help but just want to see Swan win because I feel like we were working so closely together, but I also think that really all of them would be great winners.
Okay, and I know Swan sent you in, with the desire of like, you going in and being his cheerleader. Do you feel like you're gonna follow through on that?
I will to a certain extent. I don't want to do it in a way where it looks like I'm just going to be like his number one fan and not really like listen to anybody else. But if I see there's like a negative perception of him in jury and that there's something I can say to maybe switch that around, I will. I'll kind of just take it like case by case and see kind of what the general vibe is. But I also think that Blend's game should be celebrated too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for playing Ari. We really enjoyed having you.
Of course. Well, thank you all so much for asking me
Oh,
to
hold on.
play.
We have a fan second. Someone wants to know, what is your favorite nucleotide?
My favorite nucleotide? Oh my god. Um, Uracil because she's unique and not in DNA, only in RNA, I guess. She's unique, girly.
All right. I think that answers that. So thank you so much for having you. And we'll let you steer Pearson to tree.
Of course. Thank you all so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.